I believe we're the first panel of the day, so I hope everyone's ready. We have a lot to get through, but today we're going to be talking about enhancing employee mental health and wellness support. And just to get started, let's start with some introductions. So we'll start with Lee and just go down the line for everyone to tell you a little bit about themselves and what they do.
Sounds good. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Big thumbs up. All right. Well, good morning. My name is Lee Stenby, and I'm with Aon. We do have a table out there, so come say hi if you haven't already. And I am the local benefits practice leader for Mountain States. And I actually live in Denver, but we have a fantastic team located here in Salt Lake City that are throughout the room, so find them and say hi. But I'm so pleased to be here and chat with you about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So thank you.
Good to meet you. I'm Dallin Allred, one of the co-founders and the CEO of Tava Health. We're a mental health platform headquartered here in Salt Lake City. We work with several hundred employers to connect their employees and team members to high-quality mental health clinicians. So we've got a platform that offers next-day access to a clinical therapist or psychologist across a network of about 4,000 different practicing therapist partners that we work with.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Mike Brandt. I'm the Vice President for HR Operations and Employee and Labor Relations for L3 Harris. We are primarily a defense and communications contractor. We've been in Salt Lake City for, I think, about 70 years. So quite a bit of history there on a number of programs that have come out of the state of Utah. Looking forward to the conversation this morning. So great to meet you.
Good morning. My name's Connie Washington. I'm Vice President of People and DE&I at Progressive Leasing. We are a virtual lease-to-own organization located in Draper. Happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Ryan Shatzer with Intermountain Health. Our mission is to help people live the healthiest lives possible, so it's very relevant to our topic of well-being, and I help lead out some of our wellness programs there at Intermountain Health. Glad to be here.
Okay, amazing. Let's dive in. Question number one. In September 2024, the World Health Organization released a report titled Mental Health at Work that estimated that globally $1 trillion is lost in productivity each year due to depression and anxiety. In a world where it takes a business case to get industry attention and support, what makes you passionate about employee well-being and mental health? We'll start with you, Lee. Why do you find it important to focus on?
Thank you. Well, that's a mind-blowing stat, right? $1 trillion is like an unfathomable amount of money. The other stat that I think about quite often is that 80% of workers say that they experienced work-related stress last week, right? Does that resonate? What I want to know is where do those other 20% work, and are they hiring? Anybody? Okay, come talk to me if you are. But I think what that reiterates is just how widespread and how impactful emotional and mental well-being and health is, and that it really covers a spectrum, right? Depression and anxiety, yes, but also prevention and work stress and burnout and family situations and all of those things that inherent to being human. And how do we create a workplace environment that is supportive of folks as they're experiencing those things and provides the best support. But I think you asked, why am I so personally passionate about this? And I've been working in employee benefits for 25 plus years. And what hit me was I was young in my career, and I was about probably been doing this work for 5 to 10 years, and I had a client who was a smart, young, dynamic woman, and we were doing some amazing work together. And she ended up having a very severe mental health episode, and I had no idea. And we worked together and talked on a daily basis. And that flipped a switch for me about how folks can be going through something and you may never know it, right? And so how important it is to provide yourself and your colleagues and those that you work with resources and training and access to tools to help folks, because you really never know what they're going through.
Yeah. Connie, what do you think about this?
Yeah, this is important to me. I think after going through the pandemic and mental health really showing up in the workplace, I think at a level that it hadn't before, it really, I think, opened our eyes as leaders to the challenges that our folks are facing. And life is hard for people. I think that people can show up and you have no idea that person walking down the hall could be living with an abusive situation, not have enough money to buy food, have a child that's struggling. There's so much that people are dealing with, and they don't leave it at home. It shows up at work, whether we like it or not. And so it's our responsibility as leaders and organizations to determine ways that we can support them through the challenges that they face. They're our most important and valuable asset of an organization, are your employees. So what can we do on a daily, sometimes hourly basis? What can we do to help them and to support them? And that's what we challenge our leaders to do, to lead the whole person, not just that, call center representative or that IT person, but getting to know what's going on with them so that we can be the most supportive, because they spend more time at work than they do anywhere else. So I think it's our responsibility to provide the support that can help them through some of the challenges that they might be facing.
Okay. In 2022, an article in the Harvard Business Review opened by saying, corporate programs that support work-life balance promote productivity, reduce turnover, and improve employees' mental and physical health. I'd say we can agree with that. The article went on to express the particular importance of supporting women and people of color in having a good work-life balance, as these groups face greater challenges and have fewer resources accessible. Mike, I'd love to hear from you about how your company is actively supporting employees in taking time off and mentally disconnecting from their jobs. Are there any specific strategies you would recommend others implement?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it's no surprise that we're all busy, right? We're busy at work, we're busy in our personal lives. We play so many roles outside of the office, with our family, with our friends, as pet owners, whatever hobbies we may have. So anything that my company can do for me to really emphasize how I take that time, I think is a differentiator. So whether it's a program like caregiver time off, if unfortunately we have somebody in our family that needs that time and assistance from us. If it's something like bereavement leave because we lost a pet, if it's something like virtual tutoring or childcare assistance, all those things that help lift the burdens we have in our personal life are so important for our companies. Now, we may not all be in a position here in the room to influence the policies that our companies may have, but for the managers that we work with, we play a very strong role in how they actually utilize those programs. So making sure that our managers actually understand what they are, that they're supportive of letting employees take that time, is such an important thing for the employees directly. I think the other piece of it too, I can share a little bit about my personal situation. Having children and having a wife, I rely on her tremendously for things like getting the kids to school, helping me understand what they have to have for lunch, getting them to activities after school. But if I were a single parent, that would be entirely different. So as we think about the support networks that our employees have, whether they're single parents, whether they have family in town or not, whether they have any other network that can help them with their responsibilities outside of work, now figuring out how those managers can be a little bit more human, helping those managers understand that, hey, your employees do have lives. As long as they're productive in delivering what they need to, how do you get them to support their employees use those programs?
Yeah, anyone else have something they would like to mention about maybe particularly supporting, giving that extra support to women and people of color in these situations?
I can share something that Aon does. It's for all employees, but I think it's really helpful. So Aon provides 2 global well-being days per year to our employees, and they're set days, but they don't align with any other, national or religious holidays. And so they are intended for Aon employees to use for their own self-care and their own well-being. And the whole company shuts down for that day. And I think that that's been really impactful because it allows folks who maybe, when they do have a holiday, if they are a woman or a person of color and they're in charge of sort of, hosting and doing all of the family things and doing all of that, sometimes that doesn't feel like a true day off that they can take care of themselves. And so I think that's something that Aon has done themselves that's been very beneficial.
That's amazing. Connie, I saw your hand.
we'll talk about it probably a little bit more later, but we have employee resource groups, and they're a great resource to help us stay connected to our employees that maybe are underrepresented within the organization and may face challenges others don't face, like our female employees or our people of color. And so having those groups, we get a voice from those groups, which are made up of people that identify as part of the group, but mostly of allies. And those groups are a great support to understand the challenges that people are facing that others may not recognize. And we hear it straight from them. Like right now, there's a lot of concern over immigration. And so our Hispanic ERG has been really helpful in finding resources and just talking about it, giving folks a voice to be able to talk about their experience, their fear, their challenges, which gives our leaders some insight that they maybe wouldn't have. So that's been a real important part.
Yeah, thank you. There's been a bit of a cultural shift in the workforce around the importance of discussing mental health at work. Older generations may be nervous to talk about it at all, while younger generations value being able to bring their whole self to work. How do you train, prepare, and encourage managers to build those genuine and trusting relationships with all of their employees so they can have open communication and support mental health in the workplace? Dallin, I'll go to you first.
Yeah. Well, I think, as a manager, many times people bring challenges or questions that they have to you that you're just not prepared for or not trained on the right way to answer. And so I do think it's helpful to have a resource that you can refer someone on to that has more of that clinical expertise. But I do think there are intentional investments that company leadership can make to help managers level up and develop some skills and hopefully recognize when they can and when they when they can lean in and assist and when they can more successfully transition and hand off. But I also think one of the things that companies can do is demonstrate more vulnerability as leaders, as things come up where we are feeling emotional stress or occasionally distress, to help normalize some of those challenges and also the things that we do to help us overcome those challenges, whether that's normalizing taking a mental health day off from work or attending a session with a clinical therapist or a psychiatrist. One of the policies we have at our company is just to make it safe, you can put your appointment for your meeting with your therapist on your calendar, and you can call it therapy if you want to. And it's been interesting to see people reacting to that and appreciating that. No one would really second guess putting a dentist appointment on their company public-facing calendar. I think, the younger generation is seeing more of this normalization, but especially for older generations, they're having to kind of retrain their brain and learn some new approaches to that mainstreamlining of mental health care.
Yeah, Ryan.
Frontline managers are so pivotal for the mental well-being of the workforce. They're really at a pivotal point to be able to point people, their employees, in the right direction. And so all you can do, again, they might feel intimidated. If someone's coming to me with these deep and difficult questions, how do I deal with it? And you can just basic training, help them start small. Just what are the right things that I should be looking for? What are just some basic questions that I can ask? What are my resources that I can point them to when they need more help? Just some basic things. We did a leader rounding guide where as leaders were going around, just some questions, some things to look for. And I think that's really helpful. We had an employee who showed up to work with a plan to die by suicide. And the manager noticed something in this employee and just asked a couple questions. And it got to a really difficult spot. The leader asked, "Do you have a plan?" And they said yes. They actually had a gun in their car. And that leader did the right thing. That was really, I don't know what to do at this point, but they had a couple resources at their fingertips. They had our EAP, and the employee actually didn't want to call EAP because they felt a little awkward. And so 988, we have 911, we have 988, which is a community resource, and it worked beautifully. They came on site, we got that employee to emergency room, and because that leader intervened and asked a couple questions, it saved a life. But leaders are really pivotal in just identifying and just asking some basic questions to be able to point people to the right place.
Yes, Lee.
I warned you I was passionate about this, so.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, no, right, that's fantastic story. And I was gonna add, I don't know, has anybody gone through mental health first aid, or have you heard of that? I would highly recommend that. What that can do is really help those frontline managers learn and practice the skills of having that incredibly difficult conversation, right? And when you have the opportunity to have the right semantics in that moment of crisis, it can make such a huge impact for that manager and for the employee that is in that crisis. So, you know, when I took the mental health first aid, it was a one-day certification course, and then there are follow-up, you know, sort of resources. But I would suggest checking that out. I think that's great for frontline managers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anyone else have?
Jumping back in, but another, you know, we need a lot of people out there to be able to notice this. And so we have a peer support program where there's just people out there that they're passionate, they have concern about it, and that there's training, and they can do the same thing as kind of those frontline leaders. They're trained to be able to identify and point people to the right resources. And we've trained over 1,000 peer supporters throughout our organization to be able to be that support and that help. And these people are passionate about it. And so how do we create a program to get more people out on the front lines to be able to help support?
That's awesome. Yeah, if you were to give a step one of creating one of these programs or getting people involved in a program, where would you start to galvanize employee support in this?
Find out who's passionate about it and get the group together and then learn. I mean, you can talk to me afterwards. There's free resources out there, training, get them just on some common language, get them together and be able to identify and support. But just start with asking questions and gathering some people. Others?
Yeah, Dylan.
And we often will do free leadership and management trainings just as a way to give back to the community and help folks make some of those intentional steps in being aware and how to recognize the signs and the things that you can do as a manager to intervene appropriately as someone who isn't wanting to replace somebody's therapist, but to be as supportive, first line of defense.
Yeah, I feel like this leads well into another question. During our kind of beforehand chat, there was a lot of discussion about people being able to bring their whole selves to work, and maybe having like a life first policy at your office. How are you each implementing that in your companies, and how are you allowing that holistic approach to come into employee wellness? We'll start with Connie.
I think it starts with, as you said, educating your leaders on how to lead. You don't become a leader and then you're like, I got this, I know what to do. You've got to provide them with the tools and the guidance on what leadership means. And first and foremost, it's the people. If you don't have the people, then you don't have a job as a leader. So understanding the importance of it, and it may not be for everybody. There might be some people that are in leadership roles that shouldn't be, and that's okay. They can be phenomenal individual contributors because it's a privilege and a responsibility to be a leader, not just, you check the box, you did good in that job, you go lead a team. Because a ton of damage can be done to people by the wrong leader. I don't know about how many of you, don't raise your hands, but how many of you had a leader where you're like, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get over that person because of the way that they led. And that's not okay, and we have to be willing to speak up, because I've seen and experienced where it's impacted somebody their entire career, having a leader that didn't really know what they were doing and didn't know how to lead. So I think it's critical to make sure that your leaders are prepared and capable of leading, because it is a privilege. It's not, oh, I'm cool, I'm a leader. It's a lot that goes into it. We talk to our leaders some days, they're like, man, why did I throw my hat into being a leader? Because it's hard some days. People show up and I always tell them this, that everybody's got baggage. Some people have a carry-on, others have a storage unit. We've all got it though, and you know what? You see those people lugging that baggage into work, you're like, okay, I got on that Zoom, she's not okay, she's got some baggage. And then what do? You don't go by that. You don't just go past it and think, well, she'll figure it out, she needs to do her job. You're gonna pay, and the company's gonna pay if you don't step in and do what you can to support that person. And that's just the right thing to do. One of our values at Progressive is we value people above all else. And on the HR team, that is our North Star. Is this valuing them? is what we're doing valuing people above all else, or is that something else? And we need to make sure we get back to who we are, which is valuing those people that bring so much value to us.
Yeah.
And Connie, I mean, the whole person, that's beautiful. And people come with everything, and we need to support and recognize. One of my favorite programs, I mean, obviously a wellness program, we have Personify Health, Version Pulse, Work It, cool apps, gamification, get $400 for, completing wellness activities. But one of the wellness programs that I'm most proud of is helping caregivers when they truly need help. I mean, you think about like the moments that matter in our caregiver's life. If you're not able to provide food for your family, you're going to get evicted from your home. You have a financial crisis, and I almost guarantee I think most of us will have employees at different points in their life where that's going on right now, and that's really hard. And they can't show up to work when you're going to get evicted. A lot of times these employees are on corrective action plans because they're struggling. And how do we help support them? We have a program that we just started a few years ago where food insecurity. If an employee asks, we don't ask back. We provide a food box with 2 weeks worth of food, because nothing else can really get accomplished in life if your basic needs aren't taken care of. We help them also find some housing situations. We also set up a employee relief fund where employees throughout the organization can donate money to caregivers in need, and with permission, we share some of these stories, and we get more and more donations. And we have a very generous executive leadership team and board members that donate, as well as the general base. But it provides just $1,500 for basic bills and needs when your employees are right on the fringe. And so providing some of those social well-being programs in moments that matter, employees are going to remember that, and they're going to be loyal, and they're going to be helpful. And then when those things are taken care of, then they can show up and actually be who they really are and contribute, and be able to eliminate some of these difficult things in their lives.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Lei.
I just wanted to add, that's incredible, and I'm a huge advocate of programs like that. And just a note that if you work for an organization that maybe is smaller and doesn't have the resources to build it internally, there are organizations out there that you can bring in that can help with, be an anonymous source of, folks that need help with, transportation, food, housing, things like that. And I have seen this happen. I've seen an organization, refigure some of their total rewards dollars, put this program in, and it met people when they were at their lowest and helped them in a really significant way. And then those people ended up staying on and were 10 plus year, fantastic employees. So well worth the investment.
Yeah. Are there specific ways you've seen Aon implement this whole person strategy?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I mean, I think, Aon, particularly sort of post-pandemic, when the workforce sort of went remote, and then, kind of coming back hybrid, we really leaned in on, just being comfortable showing who you were, particularly on video meetings, right? There's this new medium where, okay, it's okay if you have a cat, right, that walks in front of your camera, or you have a kiddo that runs in because you're working from home, and I think it humanized a lot of us with each other, and we've kept that as an organization, right? Like it's we celebrate our unique personalities and encourage folks to bring those into the workplace.
Yeah. When I think about supporting the whole person, often I think about supporting and having programs that maybe support outside that whole person, and maybe supporting, like we said, their families and maybe the general community. Dallin, can you tell me about how your company is supporting the community where you live and work?
Yeah, we work hard to get back to our community, and for us, our community really are the network of clinicians that we work with, and we're in all 50 states, and so it's not necessarily a geographically concentrated community, but it's one that we are really proud of our partnership with, and so it's everything from helping them get their continuing education hours to helping them facilitate some of the trickier nuances of running your own private practice. We give them a lot of free software, a lot of free support and clinical consultations. That we know that as we kind of strengthen these pillars of mental health in all 50 states of the country, they're going to be able to do good inside of their own community as a better resource and support there.
Yeah. Mike, how have you seen your company do this?
Yeah, for sure. Community impact is such an important piece for L3 Harris. I heard a couple of things that Connie said that really resonated, and actually we have a shared connection here. Our leader of our lead ERG is very involved in the community. So all of our ERGs have a charter here where they have to do professional development, personal growth, and community impact. So Eddie is very active in Salt Lake City. Our ERGs are a great source of community engagement. They all have causes that they're very deeply engaged with. Secondarily, we have the L3 Harris Foundation, and that foundation does a couple of things. I heard about grants for employees before for those who are in need. So we had grants that were given to employees who are impacted by the hurricanes in Florida, as well as the fires that were out in LA a couple months ago. But also that foundation is used for general community grants. So we may send teams to FIRST Robotics. We may have STEM engagement for K through 12 individuals. And we also use that foundation as a way to help us do some of our government lobbying to drive programs and legislation that benefit the communities that we're in. So, it's kind of the multi-pronged approach of direct employee engagement in our communities, as well as direct company giving to help those causes that we're involved with.
Thank you. Yes, Connie.
Yeah, we have about 4 years ago, we started a foundation as well, the Prague Foundation, for underrepresented youth in West Valley primarily. And it is it's so nice. It's our founder that really, it was his brainchild to kind of endeavor to level the playing field for places that don't have the resources. So if we focus on young adults, high schoolers that are maybe in a challenging environment and college or a certificate or something isn't on the horizon for them, and how we can intervene as an organization and help provide those resources with our employees, with funds. And then we do the community giving too. Each of our employee resource groups gets a budget that they get to give to whomever they want throughout the year that aligns with their ERG. And so it's a lot of times these employee resource groups don't get much support. It's kind of like, go start something, but we get a budget every year. We get the volunteer amounts, they get stock because it's critical to the success of our organization, because our customers, many of our customers look like our employees and have experiences of our employees. So it's a business necessity to make sure that we create an environment where everybody's got a chance. And maybe through life, that person just ran into issues and they didn't feel they would ever get it. But at Progressive, we're really grateful that we can give voice, we can give, those opportunities to people that, due to life circumstances, due to whatever, maybe wouldn't have had them otherwise. So giving back to the community is extremely important. Yeah.
Yeah. We've heard a lot about ERGs. I've heard it mentioned here and there. I have a specific question about that. So doing some Googling, ERGs have existed since the 1970s, but as of last year, only around 40% of employers offer them. Connie, can you tell us about how Progressive started ERGs, and maybe if someone's interested in getting them going, how would you do it now? How would you start it now?
Ours started about 5 years ago, and it came from the top of looking for ways to make sure that everybody felt like they were included and they belonged. And during the spring awakening of 2020 is when it really gained some momentum. And it just became so apparent that everybody's experience isn't the same and everybody doesn't have the same opportunity. And, watching a person die in front of your eyes on TV when everybody was stuck at home during COVID really hit people in their hearts and got people to think about how do we create a sense of belonging and inclusion. And we really started by just talking to one another. Our leadership said, let's do this. So we started first with our women in leadership, and then our Black inclusion group, and then Adelante, then our Asian American Pacific Islander, Pride, and then Valor for our military. Those are the 6 that we have. But we started to kind of tell our stories. I shared the story that you know, how challenging it was to be a Black woman in Utah growing up and what that was like, and the fact that I could be discriminated against because of my hair. If I have my hair in braids, technically an employer could discriminate and say, we don't want you here, we don't like your hair, change your hair, maybe you can get a job here. Not okay. This is a hair that I'm born with, I'm stuck with, good, bad, or ugly, and I should be able to wear it however I want and not have that impact me economically. And those are the kind of things that we're facing, you know, people are facing, and people are like, you are gotta be kidding me, you cannot. Yeah, that's true. And then we would hear stories about immigration. And one of our Adelante meetings, they did a training on how to gain citizenship. And they brought their families. They were welcome. And so those kinds of things, yeah, it's cool, it's work, but that's life-changing to do something like that. So it's not hard to do. You get the leadership buy-in. You Google employee resource groups, how to start one. And you know, many people, they're like, well, we don't have that many Black people at Progressive. Well, most of the Black ERG is not Black people. It's other people who want to support, who maybe have a family member that's married to somebody Black or a grandchild or something, just want to get involved. Or for our Pride group, want to understand how to be a better ally. Most of them don't identify as LGBTQ+, but they want to support the people that do. And so that's really what our employee resource groups are about, is building a sense of belonging and inclusion, and that they feel like when they walk in that door or they turn on the Teams in the morning, they belong at Progressive, regardless of what the world may think makes them different.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yes.
That's excellent. Two learnings from our ERGs as we stood them up. One is have an executive there, and it might just feel like a book club if just people with the same interests are just talking, but if it's not getting attention to the senior leadership group, it's not going to be as impactful as it can be. And also having an executive there, they're learning and they're seeing, and they can represent it at the most senior levels. That would just be a piece of advice. It's a big commitment, but our executives have invested in that. And then also empower them. I just sat in a call yesterday with our ERG leads across their different 7 ERGs, and they're hungry for information, especially with the executive orders coming out. And so empower them with information and what we're doing as an organization. Staying close to them, especially the leads over the groups, is going to be important to bring them along. So just two learnings from our group.
That executive support is critical. Each of our groups has somebody at the executive level that is a sponsor to be the voice at the executive level. Our board of directors is 100% behind it. There's a meeting today. They were actually talking to understand and make sure that it was still a priority and we were still focused on that. So.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that one enough. We assigned a site leader for all of our ERGs here in Salt Lake City. So an executive was assigned to every single one of the 9 that we have, and they took off. I think the second piece that I'll add to it is the employee base is such an untapped resource of passion. Everybody is so excited about it, and things that you may not even anticipate, they will ask questions about and put energy behind. So trying to stay out of their way, I think, is probably the bigger issue with those groups.
I would add, too, that the most successful ERGs that I've seen and experienced have happened when there is 1 or 2 really passionate participants, employees, right? And I think this ties back to the direct line managers, right? And the massive amount of impact that they can have. So if they have a colleague, if they have an employee who is passionate about something, participating or maybe wants to participate, having that manager's support for them investing time and energy in that, building that ERG, right? Hopefully with executive support, but even if not, I think is crucial, and those ERGs will take off and be really successful.
Amazing. Thank you all for your advice on that. One of the things that I would assume many people think of when they first start thinking about employee wellness and well-being are benefits, and having fancy benefits that help with retention, help people, things like unlimited PTO, wellness budgets, healthy food options available. These certainly help employees have time to relax after a long day of work and provide a great place for employees to, provide a great workplace for employees to thrive. But beyond maybe some of those more basic benefits, how are you mitigating employee stress up front in your workplaces and trying to help employees not even get to the point where they need all that unlimited PTO to de-stress after such a busy work week. We'll start with you, Mike.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think we heard at the beginning, right? What was it? 80% of employees reported feeling stressed in the last week. Stress is everywhere, right? There's the good stress that we all know, the growth assignments, stretch goals, the development opportunities that always seem to come our way. Stress outside of work, for sure. But the second area of stress inside of work that I think I really look to root out in my job is the kind that stems from just bad practice, right? Where our employees don't feel safe, they don't feel respected, where they don't feel cared for. So we've got a lot of great frameworks that are out there, whether it's our employee engagement surveys, whether it's ensuring that our ethics and other reporting lines are robust and direct. The fact is, if employees feel empowered enough to speak up, we have to take that and we have to take action on it. So when I'm looking at stress in the workplace as a lead for employee and labor relations, it is really about fundamentally, hey, are the basics of, are you looking at your employee engagement feedback? Are you doing anything about it? What were your ethics complaints like in the last 3 months? Are you doing anything about those? How do you know employees feel respected in the workplace? As long as we can cover down on those basics, then I think we can set the rest of the site up or the rest of the company up for the advanced programs that you're talking about, the unlimited PTO, which we have, and by the way, I'm a huge fan of, or the other wellness programs. But for me, it's the foundations. Let's get those right, and then let's build the programs beyond that.
Yeah, Dallin, do you have thoughts on this?
I think a lot of the same things. More intentional investment, as much transparency as leadership can share, and as much vulnerability as leaders and managers can exhibit themselves. I think those things, in addition to all the other benefits, really set the table for a healthy workplace culture, and you can't expect others to be willing to bring their whole selves to work or be vulnerable unless you're willing to be vulnerable first, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do you have specific ways or times when you would recommend employers try to bring out that more vulnerable side of themselves so that employees feel safe bringing that to work as well?
Yeah, we talk about it a lot in terms of, we have weekly one-on-ones. We're a 100% remote company, so we don't have a physical office, and we've got employees all over the country. And so that means that we're having to be really intentional about when we're making space for those sorts of conversations. And they typically are happening in a weekly one-on-one with a team leader, with a manager. And it's one thing to say, how are you? No, really, how are you? And it's a different thing to say, here's how I'm showing up. Here's how I'm feeling today. How about you?
Yeah. Has anyone seen an impact within their organizations when you're able to model that, bringing your whole self to work for your employees? Have you seen that impact there?
I think being vulnerable, just being honest and telling, I've had a bad day, or I just did that presentation and I totally blew it, because it humanizes you, and then they don't feel so pressured like I have to do everything perfect. We're not perfect. Again, life is hard. They have kids, they've got all kinds of stuff. Let's do what we can to make the work environment not as stressful. Doesn't mean we don't hold people accountable, doesn't mean they don't have to perform. But being human, whenever my leader, she's very seasoned, chief HR officer, and she'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh man, what did I, she'll come out of a meeting and I'm like, oh, I don't have to feel bad that I shouldn't have said that either. It just humanizes them. So I think sharing those mistakes, it just brings you not down to a level, it just gets you on the same level that, yeah, she's got this title, I've got that title, he's got that title, but first and foremost, we're human. That's the first thing that all of us have in common. We're going to blow it. We're going to have those days. And the other thing is psychological safety. That is key to a healthy workplace. If I don't feel psychologically safe to go tell the truth, to go say I'm struggling, then I'm going to probably leave, or I might blow it and not want to leave but have to leave. So creating psychological safety. And we've all been there when we've not been psychologically safe. And that's not okay. We have to focus on that so that I can tell the truth. I can say, you know what, I did that thing and my bad. And then, okay, how can we avoid it happening again? Okay, here's what I think we can do. Okay, cool, and move on. You know, and when you beat them up, you know, I've seen that where a manager brings it up again and again and again. You're like, I already beat myself up. You don't have to do it for me. I don't know about you guys, but I do a sufficient job of that. So get over it. I tell them when they make a mistake, I'm like, well, did you learn? Yeah, totally. Here's what I learned. Good, move on. Yeah, but what about move on? Can't change it. Can't change the past. Don't get a do-over. What can you do moving forward to make sure it doesn't happen again? That's the way that we can approach it as leaders, to take that pressure off of them and not have work be the place that's causing them stress.
Thank you. Yes, Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think it's really valuable to work on being a positive role model, regardless of what role you're in, right? You know, because it's possible in some of your organizations that unlimited PTO is just not a feasible business practicality, but I think modeling as leaders and as managers and as colleagues, modeling the ability to actually disconnect and take time off when you are taking time off, right? I think is really important. And that is things like, we were just talking about this today, right? If you happen to be catching up on work at midnight, right? Like, don't actually send the email at midnight, right? Wait, wait, and just work offline and send it at 8 in the morning. When you are taking PTO, like, turn off the Teams or the email or the notifications on your phone and actually disconnect, because if you are displaying that you can actually disconnect yourself as a leader, as a manager, as somebody in HR, then your employees around you will feel safe to take that time off, and then they will actually reap the benefits of having that time off. And so it can make your policies actually, you know, even if you're not able to extend your policies on time off, make them feel more effective for your employee base.
Yeah, thank you.
That's such good advice. I could do better at that. I always do that. Let me just check my email really quick. Connie, you're on vacation. I know. Sorry.
And lesson learned and now done.
Yeah.
Ryan, earlier in the conversation, you mentioned the importance of crisis response and suicide prevention. What policies and procedures has Intermountain Health implemented to promote that mental health awareness among employees and train them for how to respond?
Yeah, this is important to me, to Intermountain Health, not only for our internal employee population, but especially for the communities that we serve. This is very important. We invest quite a bit in this. And just for the sake of time, just summary. If you're thinking, how do we go about this? Think how do we prevent suicide prevention, and then also crisis. So the story that I told earlier, what do we do, and how do we point people when there is a crisis or it already has happened? How do we support the team and families that have gone through or experienced suicide? But on the prevention piece, create a culture of openness. We talked about it as well. We've had a couple senior executives be very vulnerable and open about a death of their child by suicide, and what they went through and how they were coping with it. We did a really fun campaign as well about using appropriate language. Rather than say commit suicide, someone died by suicide. Rather than, we use the terms, oh, that's crazy, that's insane. Sometimes we might want to be more sensitive and say, oh, that's incredible, or that's ridiculous. Using just different language to help promote a good culture around mental health. But just for the sake of time, if you want any additional information, ping me afterwards, because we do a lot, and this is very important to us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing. We are almost out of time, so we'll do a last kind of speed round question. We'll start with you, Lee, but what are your personal favorite ways to practice well-being?
Oh, great question. So something that I have done for a number of years that has been a saving grace for me is morning, daily, at-home yoga, whether it's 5 minutes of just sitting and breathing, or if it's a 40-minute, video where I'm working up a sweat. But that, honestly, it has changed my ability to show up for the people around me in a really meaningful way. So.
Okay, amen to yoga. I love that. Dallin, what about you?
Mine's probably pretty similar. I've started running over the past couple of years, and I find that it's a nice combination of being outside, getting some vitamin D, turning off my headphones once in a while, getting some mindfulness while I'm out, just kind of repetitively jogging. And I've never experienced a runner's high. I still have no idea what that is, but it does feel really good when I stop running. So maybe that's
all a lie.
Yeah. I have chased the runner's high too, but never quite caught up to it. Yeah. I have to give credit to a previous employer of mine who built in an executive offsite. Basically, it was like a 5-day 5-day learning series. In one half of one of the days, we actually spent time going through guided meditation and mindfulness. And I had never heard of it before, never really thought therapy was for me. But taking that time to go through mindfulness, to learn what it is, how it works, and how to do it, and to check in with myself, really made a huge difference. So if you have never experienced it, certainly look it up. I think I saw the Calm app out there. They've got some great guided meditations on there too. But just a great way when you're feeling out of sorts, stressed, or whatever else, to figure out how you deal with that.
Yeah, I exercise, and don't judge me. I like to binge watch The Real Housewives. It just gives me, it gets me away from the craziness, and I do it. And my husband's always like, he like, you're watching it again. I can't believe it. And then he sits down and he's like, is that such and such? I'm like, see there, you're paying attention to. But it just gives me a chance to disconnect and look at other people's lives and realize that mine is not so crazy.
Our wellness director has a phrase that she constantly says. She said, "Move in nature," and so exercising. That could be simple as walking and being outside. And I'll add a third little phrase: move in nature with a friend. I've been going on just simple walks away with the kids with my wife, and it is extremely, extremely helpful. I firmly believe relationships are what makes the world go round. They're worth investing in. They're worth spending our time in. More than even work or anything else that we do. And relationships are critical for our well-being.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for your leadership and thoughts today.